Have you ever heard the saying, history is often stranger than fiction? Well, it couldn't be more true. Every now and then we often come across interesting, unknown historical events that are so bizarre that we can't believe they actually happened. These incidents often seem more like fictional tales, so surreal you would think they were lifted straight from the imagination of a Salvador Dali film. From dancing plagues to birds winning a war, here are 15 moments when history took an unexpected and unexplainable turn. And trust us, some are totally dark and creepy. Number 15. World War I. The First World War is often overshadowed by the Second, which is believed to have created catastrophic devices, turned countries around, and killed millions. What isn't understood, however, is that the First World War laid the foundation for all of it. Germany, once united under King Wilhelm I's vision, became a powerful empire. Yet his son, Wilhelm II, dismantled that legacy with reckless ambition. By dismissing trusted advisors and pursuing domination over Europe, he unleashed chaos that would claim 17 million lives. This wasn't just a war of trenches. It was a conflict that broke empires, redrew borders, and left nations crippled. The economic devastation and political instability that followed fueled desperation across Europe, paving the way for the rise of fascism. Hitler's ascent wasn't born in a vacuum. It was rooted in the wounds left by this war. The Great War wasn't just the start of global conflict. It was the haunting moment humanity, with its very own hands, sowed the seeds for its own destruction. Number 14. The Great Emu War of Australia. The Great Emu War of 1932 is a tale so bizarre it sounds like fiction. During the Great Depression, Australian farmers expanded wheat production to survive, but they faced an unexpected enemy: over 20,000 emus. These large, flightless birds descended on farmlands, devouring crops and destroying fences. Desperate, farmers sought help from the government, leading to one of the strangest military operations in history. Armed with machine guns, a small team of soldiers was deployed to combat the birds. At first, it seemed they might succeed, but emus proved too fast and too clever. Their erratic movements and sheer numbers overwhelmed the military effort. Although hundreds of emus were killed, the operation was eventually abandoned. The emus triumphed, and the war became a national embarrassment. It's a story of human overconfidence clashing with nature's resilience, leaving Australia to accept defeat in what remains one of the most humorous and absurd moments in history. Number 13. The Dancing Plague of 1518. In July 1518, the streets of Strasbourg, Germany, witnessed one of the most bizarre events in history: the Dancing Plague. It began with one woman, Frau Trophea, who started dancing uncontrollably. Within days, dozens joined her, and within a week, nearly 400 people were dancing non-stop in the streets. They couldn't stop, even as exhaustion, strokes, and heart attacks claimed lives. The phenomenon baffled locals and authorities alike. Physicians blamed hot blood and exhaustion, prescribing more dancing as a cure. Musicians were hired to keep the dancers going, turning the streets into a surreal and tragic scene. Historians later theorized the cause might have been mass hysteria brought on by famine and stress, or ergot poisoning from moldy rye bread. Whatever the cause, the dancing plague remains one of history's strangest mysteries, a haunting reminder of how psychological and social pressures can push people to unthinkable extremes. Number 12. Adolf Hitler nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. Now, this one is totally crazy. In 1939, as the world teetered on the brink of war, Adolf Hitler was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. This shocking nomination came from Swedish parliamentarian Erik Gottfried Christian Brandt. However, it wasn't an endorsement, but a satirical protest against the rising political tensions in Europe. Brandt's goal was to mock the idea of peace during a time of escalating violence. Unsurprisingly, the nomination caused outrage and was quickly withdrawn. The Nobel Committee decided not to award the Peace Prize that year, a reflection of the chaotic and uncertain times. Adding to the irony, Time magazine had named Hitler Man of the Year in 1938, not as a celebration, but to highlight the immense and troubling influence he wielded. This strange chapter in history serves as a stark reminder of how power, even when destructive, can dominate global attention and spark controversy. Number 11. The Tanganyika laughter epidemic. In 1962, a strange outbreak swept through Tanganyika, now Tanzania, leaving everyone baffled: the laughter epidemic. It began in a girls' school when 3 students burst into uncontrollable laughter. The giggles spread quickly, affecting over 1,000 people, including students and villagers. The laughter was so disruptive that schools were forced to close and communities ground to a halt. What made this incident so peculiar was its intensity and duration. The laughter came in waves, lasting hours or even days, and was accompanied by fainting, crying, and other emotional outbursts. The epidemic lasted months, but its cause remains unclear. Some experts suggest mass hysteria triggered by stress or social tension in the region. Others point to possible environmental factors. While the laughter finally subsided, this bizarre event remains one of history's most mysterious cases of collective human behavior. Number 10. The Kentucky Meat Shower. In 1876, the quiet town of Olympia Springs, Kentucky, became the stage for one of the most bizarre and unsettling events in history. On an otherwise ordinary morning, chunks of red meat, some as small as 2 inches, others as large as 4, began falling from the sky. Stunned locals stared in disbelief as their fields and homes were littered with the mysterious substance. Curiosity quickly overtook confusion, and a few brave individuals decided to taste the meat, claiming it resembled beef, lamb, deer, and even bear. Others whispered darker theories, wondering if it could be human flesh. As speculation ran wild, scientists began investigating. The leading theory suggests that vultures, flying overhead after a large feast, regurgitated the meat mid-flight. Vultures are known to empty their stomachs when startled, possibly accounting for the bizarre shower. Despite this plausible explanation, the Kentucky Meat Shower remains shrouded in mystery. Number 9. The Trial of the Dead Pope. The year 897 brought forth one of the most grotesque and surreal episodes in papal history: the trial of a corpse. Pope Stephen VI, driven by political rivalries and personal vendettas, ordered the body of his predecessor, Pope Formosus, to be exhumed and put on trial. The macabre scene unfolded as the decayed remains of Formosus, dressed in papal robes, were propped up on a throne in the council chamber. Stephen VI accused the deceased pope of perjury and violating church law. In a chilling display of power, Formosus was found guilty. His body was stripped of its garments, mutilated, and unceremoniously thrown into the Tiber River. This event, known as the Cadaver Synod, shocked Europe and reflected the chaos and corruption that plagued the medieval church. Number 8. Bunnies almost killed Napoleon. Napoleon Bonaparte, a man known for conquering empires, faced an unexpected and comical foe: rabbits. In 1807, following the Treaty of Tilsit, Napoleon decided to celebrate with a grand rabbit hunt. Over 3,000 rabbits were gathered and released for the occasion. But instead of scattering, the rabbits charged at Napoleon and his men. Confused and overwhelmed, Napoleon quickly realized the animals weren't fleeing. They were attacking. The rabbits, accustomed to being fed, mistook the hunting party for their handlers and surged forward, climbing onto the emperor and his entourage. The scene descended into chaos as Napoleon and his men fled the relentless wave of furry attackers. Though harmless, the event remains one of history's most absurd moments. Even a man who dominated Europe couldn't escape the determined hunger of thousands of bunnies. This strange episode reminds us that sometimes even the most powerful individuals are at the mercy of nature's quirks. Number 7. The Straw Hat Riot of 1922. In 1922, New York City descended into chaos over something as trivial as hats. At the time, it was considered a fashion faux pas to wear straw hats after September 15th, an unspoken rule tied to the changing seasons. While the tradition was lighthearted at first, it took a violent turn that year. Groups of young men began forcibly removing straw hats from unsuspecting passers-by. What started as playful mischief escalated into full-blown riots when victims fought back. For days, the streets became battlegrounds, with mobs attacking hat wearers and police struggling to maintain order. The riots injured many, though no deaths were reported. The absurdity of the situation, fueled by rigid fashion norms and mob mentality, highlighted how small social customs could spiral out of control. Number 6. The Polish Army's enlisted bear. During World War II, the Polish Army gained an unlikely recruit, a Syrian brown bear named Wojtek. Found as a cub by soldiers, Wojtek became their loyal companion. They fed him, cared for him, and raised him as one of their own. Over time, Wojtek started mimicking human behavior, drinking beer, smoking cigarettes, and even wrestling with his comrades. When the army needed to board a British transport ship, Wojtek was officially enlisted as a private to bypass regulations. But Wojtek wasn't just a mascot. He contributed to the war effort by carrying heavy artillery shells during the Battle of Monte Cassino. His bravery and strength boosted the morale of the soldiers. After the war, Wojtek retired to the Edinburgh Zoo, where he lived until 1963. His incredible story of camaraderie and loyalty remains a testament to the bond between humans and animals, even in the darkest times of war. Now, let's talk about Number 5. Anti-comet pills of 1910. In 1910, as Halley's Comet approached Earth, panic gripped the world. Rumors spread that the comet's tail contained cyanogen, a toxic gas that could poison the planet. Despite astronomers debunking these claims, fear and hysteria took hold, creating a frenzy. Enter opportunistic scammers who began selling anti-comet pills, gas masks, and even comet-proof umbrellas. 2 Texans made headlines for peddling sugar pills at outrageous prices, sparking riots when they were arrested. People demanded their release, desperate to buy the so-called protection. The absurdity of the situation peaked when the comet passed harmlessly, leaving behind nothing but embarrassed buyers and a sobering lesson about the dangers of misinformation. Interestingly, Mark Twain, born during Halley's 1835 appearance, predicted he would die when it returned. True to his word, he passed away in 1910, making the comet a symbol of both fear and fascination in human history. Number 4. Sinking of the Titanic. The Titanic's sinking on April 15, 1912, remains one of history's most haunting tragedies. Over 1,500 lives were lost when the so-called unsinkable ship collided with an iceberg during its maiden voyage from Southampton to New York City. The disaster became infamous not just for its scale, but because it was tragically avoidable. The iceberg tore a 300-foot gash along the starboard side, breaching 6 watertight compartments. The ship's design could have withstood a head-on collision, but poor decisions sealed its fate. Captain Edward Smith, with over 40 years of experience, was resting during the critical moment. Had he been at the helm, he may have steered the ship differently, minimizing the damage. Moreover, the Titanic's construction, rushed by Harland and Wolff to save costs, relied on substandard materials, including weak rivets that couldn't withstand the icy waters of the Atlantic. Today, the Titanic rests 400 miles off Newfoundland, a chilling reminder of human error, overconfidence, and the fragility of life. Number 3. The Great Depression. The Great Depression, spanning from 1929 to the late 1930s, was a harrowing period that left an indelible mark on millions. Triggered by the Wall Street crash of 1929, it spiraled into a worldwide economic catastrophe. Banks collapsed, factories shut down, and unemployment soared to unimaginable levels. Families lost homes, savings, and hope. For many, it wasn't just about financial loss, it was about survival. Soup kitchens became lifelines, and bread lines stretched for blocks. Stories of despair were countless, like mothers struggling to feed their children or entire communities uprooted in search of work. It wasn't just the financial systems that crumbled. Human lives and dreams did too. My own grandparents often recounted how their parents barely survived the era, with hunger and uncertainty as constant companions. While recovery eventually came, the scars of this economic disaster reshaped societies and policies worldwide, serving as a grim reminder of unchecked greed and fragile systems. Number 2. Coronavirus outbreak. The coronavirus pandemic brought the world to its knees in ways few could have imagined. COVID-19, caused by the novel SARS-CoV-2 virus, rapidly spread across the globe, infecting millions and killing hundreds of thousands. Entire nations went into lockdown, hospitals overflowed, and life as we knew it came to a halt. The virus disrupted every aspect of life. Businesses shut down, schools transitioned to online learning, and families were separated for months. The toll wasn't just physical, it was emotional, with anxiety and uncertainty gripping communities worldwide. For those who lost loved ones, the pain was immeasurable. Had this pandemic occurred in an era without modern medicine and technology, its impact could have been far worse. Yet even with these tools, the pandemic exposed weaknesses in global health systems and the fragility of human life. It's a stark reminder of how interconnected and vulnerable our world truly is. What's your story? Well, drop them down below. Now let's speak about Number 1. World War II. World War II, spanning 1939 to 1945, was humanity's darkest chapter. With 85 million lives lost, it was a global conflict driven by hate, power, and ideology. Adolf Hitler's twisted belief in a master race fueled the Holocaust, which claimed the lives of 6 million Jews and 5 million others, political prisoners, Romani, homosexuals, and others deemed undesirable. Entire cities were reduced to rubble, and the world's geopolitical landscape was forever altered. Nations united against tyranny, but the cost was unimaginable. Families were torn apart, and survivors carried scars, physical and emotional, for life. The war wasn't just about battles, it was about resilience, courage, and humanity's capacity to fight back against evil. For those who lived through this era, the memories remain vivid. If you find this interesting, please like, share, and subscribe for more content like this. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next one.